Hey everyone, I'm Avi Schiffmann, and I'm going to be doing just a quick AMA. A lot of people have questions that a lot of the interviews I've done don't really ask. I guess a lot more questions that are a bit more unrelated to the coronavirus website. But yeah, so I'm going to start off with Twitter, and then I'm going to go into like Instagram and some other platforms. But all right. So the first question is, have I looked into blockchain, cryptocurrency, any of that kind of stuff at all? I have not really done any like tech stuff with cryptocurrency, but I used to use my computer to mine Bitcoin and some other altcoins. I think a big one I had was Vertcoin as well. Just in the future, a lot of these coins could be worth a lot. You don't want to miss out on what happened with Bitcoin and some other currencies. And I also believe a lot in the digital currency. I think that's a really cool thing. So yeah, I did that for a bit. It's just it's a lot more expensive these days. Like back then, I was making I don't know like $15 a day with my graphics card. I have a 1080 Ti, and now you make like $1 or two a day. It's not really much. All right, and then where would I like to travel to is another question. I'd say the number one country I'd like to visit would definitely be Korea. I'm very interested in a lot of the high tech Asian cities, and Korea is definitely one of the coolest ones in my opinion, especially Seoul. I have a lot of friends that live around that area and that go to school there, and I think it would be really cool to visit. Just it's so different from an American city. You go to New York and that's cool and all, but in my opinion, a lot of that stuff kind of like pales in comparison to all the cool kind of robotics and a lot of the also cool like fashion and just there's just so many cool things in places like that. So I would definitely like to visit Korea, and then after that, I'd probably like just to visit a lot of just other places. I think Morocco would be really cool. I really want to go into like the desert and those camps and stuff like that. I think that would be really cool. A lot of those interesting places and see how different people around the world are doing interesting things. I think that's a great way to just think of new ideas, a constantly changing environment. So I think once coronavirus starts, going down a bit, I'll definitely start traveling. Um, yeah. What makes your eyes roll every time you hear it? It's definitely every single time I just, I'm doing an interview and, they ask me about the $8 million dollars or, advertising, all that kind of stuff. Or, I'm reading something and, the headline is 17-year-old turned down 18 million, like, or 8 million. I mean, like I get that's how you get clicks on your story and everything, but it's very like I wish they would focus a lot more on what I created and the coronavirus website rather than just me turning down something that was in like March or February or something like that. And my mom mentioned that in like a Bloomberg interview, and now it's like all the media wants to talk about. So in my opinion, that's kind of frustrating just because that's not something I care about, and it's not like what my website is. But yeah, please, are you inspired by someone that you decided to create the NCOV site? I mean, when I created this, I wasn't like inspired by anyone that like this is not like the godfather of coronavirus websites. I guess I like ease of use of information. That's a really cool thing. I think that there's so many big platforms for that kind of stuff. A lot of the social networks we have make finding information so much easier, but a lot of it is not just kind of centralized into one source. So I guess I was just kind of inspired to, I guess, help people. Do I think aliens exist? I definitely do think that there is some kind of life form out there. I think there's a considerable amount of it. I mean, that the universe is just so big, and also honestly, we're kind of young into the universe as well too. I don't know. I think the universe is like 13 billion years old. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but the universe is going to continue going on for billions and billions of years. And hey, you never know. We may be like the first civilization, but there's just so many galaxies and so many possibilities. It's almost more unlikely that they don't exist. So yeah, how do I handle fame? Honestly, I think being inside all the time kind of makes that a little weirder. I mean, almost every time I have gone outside, especially in my local community, there are a lot of people that recognize me. Just a lot of like people that will like honk at me, I guess, if I'm walking or just like wave or say, "Hey, are you the kid that made the coronavirus website? No, can you make me an app?" All that kind of stuff. So I guess in that terms, I think that's kind of interesting. But I haven't really had a lot of kind of things like that happen just because I haven't gone outside very much. Um, but I think in terms of fame, I mean, I wouldn't really call myself famous. Um, I think that's kind of weird. I mean, I guess I have like I don't know, like 50 something thousand followers on Twitter, and I guess that's pretty cool. I think that the coolest part about I guess fame and everything is that you can talk to people whenever you want. I mean, I could tweet at like 2 a.m. and there will be people that would respond. Whereas I text one of my friends at 2 a.m. They're sleeping. They're not going to respond to that. So I think that's a kind of cool thing. Tabs or spaces, light or dark mode? I definitely like tabs more because I don't understand why you're gonna click a button like 8 times. I mean, what if you like mess it up and you have to like align things? Like that's just such a hassle. I just press tab. You know, so much easier. And I guess also the way I write functions. Um, I write like the like squiggly thing. I forgot what it's called, curly bracket. Like on the same line as the if statement, so I don't put it like onto the next line. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's also a weird thing I do. And then light or dark mode. I don't know why you would ever use light mode. I mean, I do most of my things at like 4 a.m. in the morning. I'm not gonna be having bright lights on me. Um, are you living your dream already? I guess I didn't really expect any of this to happen, and I don't really know what my dream is. I mean, I'd like to continue doing really cool stuff with technology, and there's a lot of fields I'm interested in, such as like biotechnology. I'm very interested in augmented reality and a lot of just other things, especially space exploration as well and commercialization. I'm very interested in stuff like that. Um, I guess I would have my dream if I had a space company like SpaceX that is that big. That would be pretty cool to me. Just to do really really cool stuff with space, and just have so many groundbreaking technologies that you're basically creating for like your spaceships and stuff. I think that would be so cool. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that are somewhat possible. I mean, there's like moon mining, asteroid mining. There's tourism, and there's also like hotels, and also if we do, and I think it's more of a when than an if, we have like a big Mars colony and a whole civilization there. I think that will create so many things. I mean, it'll just be so many new inventions and so many new just things that will happen once that happens. And I think that will definitely be the future of mankind. I mean, let's say a coronavirus is like super deadly and it kills the entire planet Earth. Well, oh look, we still have Mars. I think that's a great way to help our species survive. That we don't like destroy our entire selves in some kind of nuclear war. Uh, what books have you read in the past year? I mean, to be honest, I don't really read that much. I find it hard to stay focused when I'm reading anything. Um, some books that I have read that I think are really cool. I really like Isaac Asimov's series, The Foundation, and Empire and iRobot and all that stuff is very interesting. There's an album called iRobot, which is really cool, made by the like producers of the Pink Floyd album, The Dark Side of the Moon. It's really good. And I guess back to books. Another book I've read, Starship Troopers. I really like that one. I've read like a little bit of Dune, but I haven't finished that book. Um, I guess there's a book over there I'm looking at that I also still haven't finished just because I've been busy. It's the entire like all the books of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I really like those because they're really fun to read. Um, and is there a detailed explanation of how I made the website and what tools and technologies I used? Yeah, so I haven't really had any specific interview where they have gone in depth about asking me about programming related things. Um, I'm doing an interview with Cloudflare and their TV thing soon, but that's not really consumer focused. That's going to be tech stuff, but yeah, I guess the way I can explain the way NCOV originally kind of worked, and I guess somewhat still works, is that um, it uses Node.js, which is server side JavaScript, um, which is like PHP, which you probably have heard of, but just I guess a little bit more modern or whatever. Kind of asynchronous, a lot of cool stuff. And I use something called EJS, which is like a templating thing. It's basically HTML, but I can have variables in it from the server, so you can like put JavaScript code like in the HTML. It's kind of cool. Um, and then I also use CSS, of course. Um, yeah, so the way it kind of works is that in Node.js, every like minute or whatever, something like that, there's something called a cron job, um, and it uses a technology called web scraping. So one of the most used ones is Cheerio.js. It's kind of like a jQuery for Node.js kind of thing, and I'm able to kind of download the HTML of like I don't know some kind of, let's say, I don't know, Korea's government website for coronavirus stuff. And they have like, let's say, a table of numbers there. I'm basically able to download that table and add those numbers to a larger data set, which is basically just like a bunch of arrays that are just saved in the memory of like the server basically. And every single time there's a request to the server, all it does is it just fills out the EJS template with the information from the server, which would be all those arrays of information. So that's the way I knew how to do things, and that's the way it works. There are probably a lot more efficient ways to do things with things like React and all kinds of frameworks. I just don't know how to use any of that stuff, um, to be honest. So, yeah, that's basically how it works in terms of, I guess, also server like hardware. I used something. I guess now I do a lot more stuff with Cloudflare, but originally I used DigitalOcean as a VPS, which is a virtual private server, and I kind of figured out how to do things with Ubuntu. Um, so there's an Ubuntu server, and the web server was like NGINX. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry, but yeah. So DigitalOcean VPS, Ubuntu thingy, and I guess I also use Cloudflare for DDoS protection and also a lot of caching. That helps the website load a lot faster and also takes a lot of the load off my servers, and a lot of other benefits. Just kind of like an admin panel to track, stats of like how many people are visiting the site and where. So I guess that's a little bit more detailed. Why would a 17-year-old turn down the chance to be independently wealthy for the rest of his life just for the public good? Really, who raised him? Because blah blah. So I guess I can go a little bit more in depth about the 8 million thing too. That was kind of like a contract kind of thing from like a big kind of ad agency, um, that basically like I guess it's not like completely selling the website, but it's basically I'm kind of an employee in a way to my own project where I do what they tell me to do kind of in a way, um, and I can't just like stop working on the website really. I like to be more in control of my own project, and I don't want to just hand it off to some company like that, and I also there's just so many things. I mean, I don't want my website full of pop-ups and advertisements and all those kind of things. If you have advertisements on your website, a lot of the media cannot show them. A lot of the media I do, they can't show this Ferrari flag, so I have to go sit over my desk because it's brands and all that kind of stuff. You can't have all those ads. If I did that, then I wouldn't have won stuff like this, like the Webby Award. I wouldn't have won things like this if my site was just another website full of ads. There's so many things. Also, a lot of ads they track people too. I don't know if anyone wants to be tracked as well. It also makes the loading times longer for people with lower cellular connections. I mean, there's just so many reasons to a lot of that kind of stuff, and I just didn't want to. And also, a lot of things people say too is why didn't I just accept that offer and make another coronavirus website? Well, I mean, people are smarter than that, and part of the contract is it's not like I can just, you know, okay, thanks, and then just remake the entire website exactly the same. They know that kind of stuff. You can't just do that. Um, but yeah, and I have expensive lawyers, so. Um, how much time does it take for you to update the website? How do you balance your time when you were still in school? The website is all automatic, so it's not like I'm manually entering any information, um, because of the whole web scraping stuff that happens every like couple minutes or whatever. Um, and I guess how did I balance? I guess I could say working on this website when I was in school is that I did not balance it. This is like a very weighted thing. I mean, I was in like ceramics class. My teacher like turns around. I'm working on my coronavirus website. I just didn't really balance it, to be honest. I just kind of focused all my time on things that I was doing. And I guess it turned out well in the end. Um, how have your parents supported your work? I saw you wrote that you dropped out of high school, and I know you don't sleep much. These are decisions typical parents might not normally support. Well, I mean, my parents did not really support me doing that kind of stuff, I guess, all the time. I could show them something and made a lot more about, like, okay, but what about your math grade kind of thing? There's a lot of stuff like that. I think there are a lot of different reasons why I dropped out of high school. I mean, I'm not like fully like dropping out really. I'm just kind of getting my GED. Instead, I'm like I would have been a senior next year. So instead of like another 1.5 ish years of like online school or whatever and all that kind of nonsense, I just decided to drop out and get my GED, and maybe I'll go to college. And if I have a bachelor's degree, no one's ever gonna care whether I had a diploma or a GED. That kind of stuff is just they're not gonna care about that really. I mean, let's say like let's say you're an adult. Has anyone ever asked you, do you have a GED or do you have a diploma? I highly, highly doubt it. That stuff just does not matter, and it allows me to have a lot more stress taken away and allow me to work a lot more on my projects. What TV shows do you binge on your spare time? I think I find it very hard to find things that are interesting to watch. I usually watch movies a lot more than TV shows, but I did find a TV show lately that I thought was amazing and that I watched the entire thing in like a week. It was a show called Succession, and it's on Amazon Prime. It was absolutely amazing. That was definitely like the best combination of just like writing and story and just so many stuff. It was amazing. That is an amazing show. I highly recommend you watch it. The music is so good, um, and I cannot wait for the next season. It was so amazing. Um, how did you learn to code? What are the main languages someone should learn to create a website, such as your tracking website? What is better, web development or app development? Before I was doing web development, I kind of started web development. I guess around like I don't know October of 2019. I don't really know. And before that, for I guess a year or so, I was doing a lot of mobile app development, specifically native iOS. So like with Swift and Xcode. I hadn't really done React Native because that's kind of in a way it's like web developmenty, and I didn't know web development. Um, so yeah. Um, and if you want to know languages to create a website such as my tracking website, I mean, I guess the only programming language you need to know is JavaScript because HTML and CSS aren't really languages, they're like markup things. So I guess kind of, you know, I would start by learning client-side JavaScript, which is, no server-side stuff, and then going on to things like Node.js. Node.js is basically JavaScript, but some stuff is a little bit different syntax, and, you just do things differently. But yeah, so if you want to learn web development, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, that's basically what websites are, at least for now. Do I have a dream? I don't dream because I sleep, but I never sleep. I mean, um, but if I were, I guess, to dream things, I guess it's a lot more. I think, uh, yeah. What are my hobbies? I guess I used to do a lot of skiing, but now, one, the snow is all melted, and two, there's a pandemic going on, so I can't ski. But that was a really big thing. I really like skiing. I did fencing for a while too, but I like skiing a lot more. It's really cool. This year I started doing competitive ski racing as well. I mean, I'm not very good at it compared to my teammates, but it's really fun. I'd say if you're the worst on the ski racing team, you're still the best at like your school. I wouldn't say I'm a bad skier, but I'm not like a pro skier. But that was very cool to me. I also really like art. To me, programming it is also kind of like art. Um, I really like abstract art, and I really like museums. I guess I also really like watching movies. I just like a lot more creative things. Making videos, editing things, uh, all that kind of stuff. I guess I'm really big into art and things, and when I do travel, I will definitely go to a lot of museums. Um, what games do I play? I do play a lot of games sometimes. Not really. I used to play a lot more than I do now. I played Dota 2 for like years. I mean, I played like a lot of hours of that game. I even went to the Dota 2 tournament, the international. I think in 2017 or 18. I don't really remember when. That was really cool. Uh, and I guess these days I probably play. I like Warzone a lot. That game's pretty fun. It's really cool on PC, especially. I guess I play some CS:GO, just kind of regular games. Um, Kerbal Space Program is kind of fun, but I guess I don't really play much video games anymore. I do a lot kind of programming things on computers, but when I'm bored, maybe at like 3 a.m., maybe I'll go driving in GTA. That's kind of relaxing. Are you a Seahawks fan? Uh, I mean, sure, I live in Seattle, but I haven't really lived in Seattle for like forever. I've only been here like maybe 6 years. Um, and I also am not really into football and a lot more other kind of sports. I know a lot more about skiing and stuff like that. So football and all that stuff isn't really my thing. I mean, I guess I like the Seahawks because when they win, people are happier. Where I live. So sure. What was the hardest part about making the coronavirus website? Has something weird happened in the process that you would love to share? Um, I guess I guess the hardest part about the website is just you know dealing with it. Sometimes it's nice to just not have to deal with anything. Like, I mean, let's say you don't have the coronavirus website. I don't have to maintain something that millions of people use and all kinds of things from all around the world. I mean, that's a lot of pressure, I guess, to just constantly be doing stuff. And also a lot of things change format. You have to web scraping is super super hard and very annoying. And I hope that the next projects I do, I don't have to rely on web scraping. That's why the 2020 protest one is all manual, which is very slow. But I just absolutely hate web scraping. It's such a hassle. So many things change format. So many things will just blow up, and it's just such a hassle to deal with. So things changing format, a coronavirus, dashboard stuff is very hard. How did I learn to code? Just like my Webby speech, you can learn anything online, and that's definitely true. Um, all I did was literally just watch YouTube videos, Google things, and hang around in like web developer chat rooms on like Discord. There's so many people willing to help you. You just have to ask. And there's so many resources online. I think a really good one is like Free Code Camp. They have like 14-hour long tutorials on like modern web development stuff that is just like on YouTube for free with no ads. Like that stuff is amazing. Really great resources. There's you know I think you can really like completely learn all kinds of programming stuff online. You really don't need to go to college for that kind of stuff. I mean, um, I think if you want to do like really advanced computer science things, so like machine learning and a lot more kind of data algorithms and weird kind of quant things and stuff like that, then sure, get a computer science degree. But if you want to just be like a web developer, making websites and maybe being a web developer for companies like Google or whatever, I really think that you can completely learn all that stuff online. Um, there's just so many resources and so many great videos and all that stuff. It's really just asking questions, knowing what questions to ask and knowing how to use Google and stuff, learn anything like that. How was your school life? I guess just average. I mean, I'm just a high school student. What tool are you using for data visualizations? How did you scale the application? Okay, there's a whole bunch of questions in this. I don't know what tool I'm using for data visualization. I mean, it's just HTML tables. I guess specifically it's like data tables, which is some like jQuery thing, which allows you to like do the sorting and searching thing. How did I scale the application when it started getting massive traffic? So originally, it was just on the $5 droplet from DigitalOcean. You know, um, that was decent for a considerable amount of time. I think in March, I probably had to continue scaling it. Now that's it's not going to go down because of traffic. I mean, to an extent, if it gets the traffic like a billion visitors in like a day, okay, that may bring down the servers. But yeah, uh, uh, I just kind of threw more money at it, and you can get things better. Which hosting provider are you using? Is the app static like a CMS like WordPress? DigitalOcean and Cloudflare. What databases are you using? Not using any databases right now. Where did you learn how to build it? Same thing as the last question, YouTube and stuff. How are you taking care of yourself with all this coding and attention? I'm honestly probably not. I mean, I kind of don't really ever sleep. Um, there's not really much to do during coronavirus stuff. I mean, I try and go outside and I don't know, play with my drone or whatever, but just, everything is basically closed. Not really much to do. So, I'd like to go traveling soon. I think that will make me happier and, change of environment. Um, Web scraping tools that I use to scrape tables and PDFs and all that stuff. It's just Node.js is basically, there's so many libraries for scraping with Node.js. There's things like Puppeteer and Selenium and stuff where you can like literally click buttons and all kinds of stuff. Mainly things like that. What is your opinion nowadays on education? I guess I'm not gonna say college is completely useless. I mean, I haven't gone to college yet, of course. I think that school, especially high school, is kind of geared towards kind of a very well-rounded education. You're learning just as much math as you're learning history, which is, I guess, maybe good in a way. That way, you find like you kind of do everything. So maybe you'll be like, oh, I really like history. I'm gonna do a lot of history stuff. But I guess a flaw to that is then you also still have to do a bunch of math things. I think in England or something like that. I'm not super sure. They have like GSCE kind of things where you don't really have to uh like take math if you don't want to. You can like completely focus on English and stuff. So I think their system is kind of cool. But um yeah, I guess I value education. I think that you know there are I can't like let's say I want to start like a biotech company. I don't understand biotech. I would probably want to be educated in that, and the best place to get that kind of stuff would be you know learning biotech at like a top university or something like that. There's all kinds of stuff. So you know there is value to being taught by the world's best professors and things. So I think that a lot of the way education is could be more modernized. I think especially American education is very like industrial revolutiony. But but yeah. Do you think this will be a yearly thing? I think you're talking about coronavirus. Hopefully not. I mean, hopefully it doesn't like become something like the flu that's just like mutated thing that just kind of happens every year, and it's always a struggle to get the vaccine. Hopefully, they find a vaccine. I don't know, a couple months to a year, and the virus goes away. But yeah, I guess that's kind of hard to predict now. Do you see the virus increasing substantially in the United States right now? I guess maybe. I don't know. I mean, um, probably. I mean, the numbers are still increasing. A lot of states are trying to reopen, which is causing a lot of problems. A lot of the states have to balance their economy and not going bankrupt and also the safety of their citizens. So I guess that's a struggle. But a lot of the United States also have a lot of the Black Lives Matter protests, which is a lot of people super close together. Um, it's great that they're doing that, but it's also, they should be wearing masks and, keeping their distance, which I don't really think most people are. But I don't really know. I think that's going to cause a lot more cases in the United States, but, not really much I can do about that. I mean, it will probably continue increasing for a while, to be honest. I don't really see this slowing down in 2020. Maybe 2021 is when we'll see a lot more positive stuff. What are your tips on carrying projects that solve problems? I think you just mean making like impactful things, I guess. I guess look what people are talking about in the media. If I made a website right now on Legos, no one's going to talk about it. If I made a website on the Black Lives Matter stuff, people are going to talk about it because it's what is in the media, it's what people want, and all that stuff. So I guess just look, what is relevant. I guess what's trending on Twitter or something like that. That's how you find things that people are talking about. Your survival rate calculator is fascinating, but I'm curious why you don't include obesity as a risk factor. Everything I've read mentions it as an independent risk factor. I know that. I will add it soon. There's so many things to do and so many things I'm doing. I will add that eventually. It's also stuff like location, ethnicity, a lot of things that are big factors. Would you be opposed to living on the moon/Mars? How do you think space mining would affect the global economy? How do you think AGI would affect people's livelihood? What text editor do you use? And what was your first major project? These are so many ridiculous questions all in one. So I guess in terms of the moon and Mars, I kind of have answered that a little bit before, but I'm definitely all for expanding the human race and I guess our civilizations to be more of a eventually hopefully an intergalactic species. I think that would be really cool. Maybe we'll meet other species out there and do all kinds of cool space things. Maybe I've watched many movies, but yeah. I mean, I think that we do need to focus a lot more on climate change and making like our spawn point better. I guess make Earth if we can't keep Earth clean, how are we gonna keep Mars and the moon clean? Terraforming a planet is 1,000 times harder than keeping Earth you know Earth not being like a gnat like frozen over or something like that. So I think we need to focus a lot more on that before we do expand to Mars and things. But how do you think space mining would affect the global economy? So that's also something very interesting. I have talked to my friends a little bit about that, and I think a lot of people also don't realize that there are many things that would go into that. So, if you were to do that, you would have unfathomable amount of wealth. I mean, I think the first trillionaire will really be someone that is doing something with moon and asteroid mining, but right now, our economy really just can't support that. I mean, you're taking so much money out of the economy if you were to be like, a trillionaire. I mean, Jeff Bezos is already causing a lot of problems due to just how incredibly wealthy he is. And I don't think that, currently the economy can support trillionaires. I don't think that's really possible. And, also stuff like, let's say, you there's like a ton of iron, like in like deep in the moon and stuff like that. And let's say you take that, when you bring a lot of those resources back to Earth and it devalues it. Like the reason why diamonds are so expensive is because they're rare. If we just have unlimited iron, the price of iron is going to be so low. At what point does the price of iron cost so much, or so like little, like it's not even worth to bring it down from the moon because that's expensive. So that's a big thing as well. And also, I just what would we do also with that much iron? I think a lot more moon and asteroid mining will be a thing when we have just a much bigger economy and we're a more expanded across our solar system and have living on Venus, Mars, and the moon and all that kind of stuff. I think that's when a lot of that stuff will become bigger, just because right now, what would we do with all those resources? The economy can't deal with a trillionaire, and like it would also just devalue that stuff. I mean, think about if you had all that. There's a lot of people that rely on iron related things for like their jobs, and if you just have all of that. Why mine it on Earth when there's just unlimited stuff on the moon? So a lot of things with that. I don't know what AGI is, so I don't know how to answer that. What text editor do I use? I use VS Code. That is my favorite one so far. I just really like the way it is. I'm sure there are other great ones. There's Atom and Sublime. I've used VS Code, so I use VS Code. Yeah. What was my first major project? I don't know. I've made so many things, and I don't even remember stuff. I know that the first website I made um, was sometime when I was 7-ish years old. It was some kind of stick figure website. I actually still have all the code for it on a CD. Which maybe I think would be cool to host that website. It's terrible. It's a terrible website. I mean, there are like pages, like page 3. The only way you can access page 3 is if you're on page 2. I never added it to like the homepage. I don't know why. I mean, it's terrible. Um, but it's kind of funny. The code is atrocious, but yeah, it's interesting. Who do you look up to? I guess this is kind of cliche, but I really do look. I don't really look up to, but I think I am very inspired by people like Steve Jobs. Um, and the reason why, I know he was a very big asshole and everything like that, but Apple never would have been what it is today without Steve Jobs. I mean, I personally think the way Wozniak and all that stuff and things were just dealing with Apple. They would have just been a computer company selling things to like that local computer store or whatever. I don't think they really would have turned into what they are today without taking risks and being visionary like people like Steve Jobs are. So um, part of the kind of quote from the Think Different stuff from Apple is I have a poster of it right there. And I really like the last sentence, because the people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. That's a really cool quote. I'm very inspired by all that stuff, and yeah. When I started the program, again, when I was like, I don't know, 7 or something like that. What extracurriculars activities have you been involved with? Robotics. I have done some robotics. Advice you would have wished to give to you in ninth grade. Focus more on what you care about, and less than. I think in ninth grade, I was kind of always thinking, oh, how do I take the most AP classes and honor classes and all that kind of stuff. But really, that stuff does absolutely not matter. I mean, I don't even have a transcript anymore, so all that stuff I did do is not even useful anymore. Is programming/web design your passion, or was it how you create your helpful app? I don't really understand. Grammar's kind of weird, but yeah, I don't really care that much, to be honest, about like programming, the way it works, like the ones and zeros and stuff like that. That's cool and all, and I do think that's interesting, but to me, programming is a lot more of a creative medium. I cannot paint a circle, but I can code a circle. I think that, instead of using a paintbrush, I type a bunch of random, letters on words on my keyboard. Now comes a coronavirus website. I'm very interested just in making things, whether it's, film, music, all kinds of stuff. And to me, programming is just a medium to do that I know how to do things with. So I care, I guess, a lot more about just being able to make things, and programming is my tool for that. So I don't really, it's not, I guess, my passion is not sitting down at a desk and programming stuff. It's just the way I do things. So I'm not super interested in working for like a big tech company. But yeah. Favorite ice cream? Vanilla. What was your favorite interview and why? um my favorite interview was probably the Democracy Now! One, just because I got to go to a studio and put something in my ear, and there's a camera, and there's like a backdrop behind me. I thought that was cool. Made me feel important. So that one was cool. Yeah. Have I ever been to Israel, and are you still keeping the Jewish faith? I have lived in Israel, I think maybe once or twice, and I've been there before. But I'm not really religious. Anyways, that is the all of Twitter. So I will now move on to Instagram. All right, I got some questions from Instagram. The thing about Instagram is a lot of the questions are very similar to the ones from Twitter, but whatever. What is the most inspiring movie you have ever watched? I'd say my favorite movie related to, I guess, inspiring me, I guess, to do things with computers is a movie called The Social Network. It's about the origins of Facebook and the creation, and I think it's really cool. Um, Next, how long did it take you to build NCOV? I don't know, a couple days, maybe a week for the first version. Um, you're a junior. What are your college plans, and when start inspired you to start coding, and when? Honestly, I have no idea what inspired me to start programming. I guess I've always just been around computers, and I like doing things with computers a lot, and I guess eventually when you do so much things with computers, to do more stuff with them, I guess you need to learn programming to do like advanced things, and maybe more like terminal commands. So yeah. And my college plans, I have no idea. I'd like to maybe go to Stanford. I like that college a lot, and I think they have a lot of really good resources for a lot of the things I wanted to do. But it's expensive. It's a big time commitment. I don't necessarily know what I would learn, and I honestly, I may even drop out. I have no idea. If I were to go to college, I'd probably do a mix of like liberal arts, business, and like computer science, maybe. Do I have a girlfriend? No. Was this a difficult project to work on? I'd say so. Any tips to become a better programmer? I think the best way to learn programming is to um, make things. I think if you're constantly just making projects, you're learning every time you make something, and the next time you make it, you'll make it even better. It's way better to do things like that than just watch YouTube videos that show you how to make to-do lists and stuff like that. I mean, you're not going to learn anything doing that, in my opinion. Has your perception of time changed recently? Probably because I woke up at like, I don't know, 8 p.m. today. I went to sleep at like 10 a.m. The days just kind of whizzed by. What would you do different if you had known this website would blow up? I would have made it easier to deal with things changing formats. Right now, there's a lot of fail safes. So like, if one thing changes and like it messes up stuff, it's not gonna like bring down the entire website. So I wish I did that stuff earlier. Would have taken a lot of stress away. What rank are you in CS:GO? Uh, I don't know. When I used to play like in middle school, I think I was MG something, but it's been a while. Hi Avi, if you don't mind me asking, what made you want to make this website when like Worldometer existed? I didn't even know Worldometer existed when I made this website. Um, I don't know if they did it first or if I did it first, but yeah. All right, actually, two more questions from Instagram. A lot of people are asking, what I want to do in the future, and I guess what I would like to say is I'd like to do a lot more high impact things with technology. A lot of companies that I'm very inspired by for that kind of stuff would be, I guess, like Napster. I think what they were was really cool. I mean, they were a terrible company. They were sued by everyone who ever made music, but they changed music forever. And because of Napster, we now have things like Spotify and YouTube Music and all that kind of stuff. So I like to make really high impact things that just change, I guess, society and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, and another question: if I were to donate all my money to a cause, what cause would it be? Um, if I had to choose causes, I guess I'm really into Doctors Without Borders. I think they're an amazing organization. They do like awesome work, and without them, I think the world would be a much worse place. And I think that they deserve all the media attention and all the donations they can get. So I definitely support their cause. Um, and another thing is that I think what's happening in the Middle East is pretty bad. There's a lot of humanitarian issues in the Middle East, and I would definitely like to support that. Um, and the United States, there's a lot of civil unrest movements, and I guess I would like to support a lot of that stuff too. I think that a lot of things in the United States could be reformed better. Um, and I don't want to get too political on anything like that, but yeah, I guess some other things I would be interested in is definitely climate change as well too. I think that is a much bigger deal than a lot of regular people really think. It's more than just things being hotter and you can't live in like Dubai anymore. I think there's a lot more things that go into that. Like the world will be terrible. You won't be able to grow normal crops. People will starve, and we have the issues with overpopulation. Becoming more of an issue at the same time where you're not gonna be able to grow things as easily. I mean, that's a big problem. A lot of things like that. So very into finding ways to either reverse that or prevent that from happening, or slow that kind of stuff down. I think that's gonna become a really big problem in the world, and we definitely need to do more stuff about that. But yeah, those are the Instagram questions mainly, and then there was one question or two on Slack, and the question there was, why is the GitHub repo not open source? And the reason why is that it used to be open source, but what people were doing is they were like copying the entire code of the website, putting it on a similar sounding domain name. So like, I don't know, ncov19.live instead of ncov2019.live. And all they were doing is changing the donation button to their own donation page with like Avi Schiffmann, like with an O instead of an A. And there were a lot of people doing that, and they were constantly updating. So I stopped that by just making it private for now. And when the coronavirus stuff is over, I will make it public so everyone can see. But for now, private. And then another question is, do I feel like I'm making the most out of my media coverage while it lasts? Honestly, I really don't think I'm using the opportunities and connections to their fullest extent. I think I'm mostly just sleeping all day. I'm very burnt out from a lot of things, and I think I could be doing a much better job with that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm very tired. I mean, I made that protest website and expect it to become popular, but now it's popular, so now I have to deal with that website. Um, but honestly, I'd really honestly like to just take a break for like a week and just lay on a beach and like not do any programming things and not do any media stuff and not check Twitter or anything like that. But yeah, that was this extremely unnecessarily long AMA. I'm sorry, but hopefully it answered questions that you found interesting, and I think this would be an interesting video to watch for myself when I'm older. But yeah, I'm Avi Schiffmann, and maybe I'll do another AMA one day. But yeah, hopefully this answered your questions.